Hi, everybody. My name is Risa Greenwald, and I have with me my colleagues Bob Franco and Sarah Andrews from the Career Center with me. We're going to have an informal chat this evening. I'm going to let the panelists introduce themselves in a minute, but just to put this in some context, we know what's going on in the job market, but none of us are out there in the position that you are. We invited 2020 grads to this, and it has occurred to us that we're giving you our best advice based on what we think and what we hear from employers. But I want you to hear this from people who have been in a very similar situation. When the class of 2009 started college, they didn't expect to be graduating into a recession, and they didn't expect to be having to face this difficult job market that they did. And so I think that you have a lot in common, even if your goals and your backgrounds are different, you're in a similar situation now. And we thought that it would be good to hear from them. And so we've invited them to come talk to you. We have some questions for them. I hope that you also have questions for them. You have a chat feature and a Q&A feature on the screen. Please use the Q&A so that we can see whatever questions, whatever questions you have. We are probably going to wait till the end to respond to your questions. We may decide that it's relevant in the moment and we may interrupt and ask a question. So feel free. At the end of the presentation, we'll give you contact information for the panelists because they have all graciously agreed to respond to additional questions afterwards. But it does benefit everybody in the group if you would put your questions out there right now. So let's just start with some introductions. If you would just tell everybody what your degree is in. They're all 2009 grads. What you majored in when you were a student and what your current position is and who you're working for. So Kristen, you want to start?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Kristen Urban, class of 2009, like Risa said. My degree was in communications with a concentration in public relations specifically. And what I do now is I'm an assistant vice president at Coin PR. I'm sure we'll get more into this, but it's actually the company that I interned for when I was a student. But there I help manage strategy, campaign development, and creative for a number of clients across our consumer lifestyle division, everything from Hilton Hotels to Red Robin to Hard Rock to some of our liquor brands in the Jim Beam family.
Thank you. Panelists, I just want to tell you that with this system, there is a little bit of a delay. So if you could just wait a second before you speak. And Andrew, do you want to introduce yourself, please?
Absolutely. Hello, everybody. I'm Andrew Colucci, as we alluded to.
Andrew, you're muted. You're muted.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Hello, everybody. My name is Andrew Colucci, and as Risa had alluded to, I graduated in 2009. Double majored through the business school in marketing and sports management. The first job out of school was to be and work in the sports field. That's not where I am at this point. I work for a company called Expert HR. It's part of the umbrella Relics companies. It's a multinational corporation out of the UK. I am a customer account manager, so I manage organizations post-sales, so existing clients through the life cycle of renewals and retaining them. And I work with small clients and up to clients like Nike and some of the largest organizations in the world. So it's a little bit of everything, and that's what kind of I focus on.
Thank you. So the magic of technology doesn't always work 100%, and our third presenter was having trouble getting on, so she is calling in. So Indiana, would you please introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Indiana Petro. I also graduated in 2009. I majored in international relations and minored in business administration and French. I am currently an assistant vice president at a company called Euler Hermes. We're an insurance agency for trade credit with finance. I am in the role of managing the back office, everything from implementation through invoicing, whatnot, for everything from Canada down through Brazil. And I report directly back to Paris, working on their largest international multinational policies.
Thank you. So Indiana, can you, let's stay with you for a minute. So can you if you can remember, when you first started college, did you come with a career goal, or did that evolve over a couple of years while you were a student?
Yeah, so when I got to Seton Hall, I knew I wanted to study international relations, but I also knew that I always wanted to work in business and the private sector. I wasn't looking to go work with the UN or for the US government abroad. Instead, I wanted to do more international business. So from day one, I worked with the diplomacy school to make sure that whenever I could take a class with the business school, they replaced my diplomacy class to take a business class. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do when I graduated, and I can assure you I didn't expect to be going into insurance. But I did have an idea that I wanted to work in international business from day one, yeah.
So when you started your senior year, where were you thinking you were going to be at the end of your senior year?
I was in a very fortunate position. I had done some internships that had put me in contact during college. Professor Amoroso, he taught business law. Or international business rather. I was in his class my sophomore year and had the opportunity to be his intern for a summer while he was the CEO of 3 hospitals. And that gave me a lot of really great experience. But when I graduated, I was expecting to go into international business, working in London. I was accepted at the beginning of our senior year to participate in a year-long program working in international business and finance. They were going to pay for everything from my housing to my food to my first year of my MBA there, and then provide me with a full-time job with an expectation that I would have a job after that 1 year as well. Back in the States. And unfortunately, with how the market continued, the jobs in finance, and especially bringing international students in on visas, took a turn for the worse within, I'd say, a week and a half after graduation. So I went from thinking I was leaving for London mid-July to being told that the earliest I'd be going was the second semester of 2000, or the first few months of 2010. So it was a adjustment trying to figure out if I wanted to wait for that or if I wanted to pursue other opportunities. And while waiting, I ended up pursuing a few opportunities that opened a lot more doors for me. It definitely wasn't the path I expected to take, but I was open to discuss different things with different people and to really just see what was available. I ended up going in and working in fashion in New York. And that was based off of a connection I'd made in one of my classes at Seton Hall. His father owned the company and was looking to hire someone, and it just kind of worked out at the right moment. But my one suggestion would be don't be too fixated on one goal. Other opportunities come along, and you kind of just have to go with the flow.
Thank you. I'm going to get back to advice in a little while because I think that you guys have some good tips for everybody. So, Andrew, I believe that you also interned while you were a student. Could you talk about what your plan was as you entered, I guess, close to the end of your senior year? What your plan was, and did it continue down the path you expected it to?
Yeah, so I had internships throughout the junior and senior years. The last internship I had was with a women's professional soccer team. They're Sky Blue FC. I believe they still are a part of the league that they play in. And at that point, I wanted to work for a team. So I've been working as part of that in a sales capacity, selling tickets, being a part of that game day environment, doing that. And there were some opportunities potentially with some of the teams and organizations that I interned with, and they all fell by the wayside as the market kind of went the wrong way, and organizations and corporations were spending less money on buying tickets and boxes and things like that. Through that internship, there was somebody that was working as a consultant for the team that was working for another company that eventually, after I graduated, maybe a month or two afterwards, introduced me to that organization, got me an interview through that process, and then I was ultimately hired for that job. So my first job was purely nothing to do with the internships I had originally, but with the connections I had made while having an internship and building rapport with people and networking with them through the course of that. I did ticket sales for about a couple of years, and at that point, I did not enjoy that experience. I didn't think it was something that I liked, the churn and burn nature of that. So at that point, I was looking for other opportunities, and I bounced around several other jobs from that point. I worked for a nonprofit doing fundraising for them, doing special events, golf outings, dinners, things of that nature. Worked my way towards working in the HR space in marketing and account management, and ultimately that's where I am now, working as the account manager for an organization where we support HR professionals with compliance solutions.
So just backing up for a second,
yeah.
Did you go, when you found that you were not going to be able to stay with your internship, how did it take you a while to get to that first position that it sounds like you networked your way into?
Yeah, so when that failed, obviously it was early in the process. It was about probably January, February of 2009. I didn't get hired and have a job in place by July. So there was a gap of 5 to 6 months after when I thought I'd have something at that point. It wasn't, obviously we graduated in May, so it wasn't a big gap in time that I did not have a full-time job, but it was a longer process than I anticipated through that, and just trying to work with the people I had interacted with that had positions to try to have them help me as best as they could to find something.
Thanks. So Kristen, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself in a second, but I don't think you had that gap, but do you have any suggestions, or anybody have any suggestions for the participants, the new grads who are listening, if they do have time between now and the time they actually get a job offer? What do you recommend that they do at that time? Anybody who wants to answer? Yeah.
Yeah, I could take that one. So I didn't personally have that gap, but I think I was more of the exception than the norm. I had quite a few friends who didn't find a job right afterward. You know, there were hiring freezes. There were companies that were tightening their purse strings because of budgets and other things because of the economy, who did a number of different things, whether that was went and lived home for a couple of months or spent some time volunteering or traveling, which may be a little bit more difficult now. But take some time. You know, if the job hunt is grinding you and you're losing that energy and that motivation, do something that energizes you in the meantime. You know, there's plenty of causes right now that you could give back to. If it's something as simple as, you know, learning a skill that you've always wanted to learn, and it doesn't have to necessarily be super tied to your job. If it's, I've always wanted to learn a second language, take the time to do that, or go read some books that have been on your bucket list for a while, or listen to a podcast that you've been meaning to get to for a while. Take that time to do something that'll energize you, so that when it is okay to get back into the job hunt, or you have that energy and motivation again, you sort of feel restored and you go into it with that little bit of a boost. I think the other thing is just transferable skills, and I'm sure everybody's heard a bunch of this and I won't beat it to death, but it might not be directly tied to your major or even the ultimate career path, but do something in the interim where you could sort of spin that when you're in an interview. You know, it might not be, hey, this was my major and I'm going into this field, but do something in the interim where maybe it's customer service related. That applies to almost every field. But find something where when you go back into an interview and you're talking to potential employers, you could show that what you've done with this time translates to what you'll be doing for them.
Thank you. Does anybody want to add anything to that?
I would just recommend networking. Don't be afraid to reach out to classmates maybe a few years older that you met, or friends of family, anyone that you know, or someone that you have come in contact with that may be a good connection in a field you're interested in. Companies might not be hiring today just because they're uncertain of where they may be tomorrow, or they're just uncertain on how they're going to onboard someone when everyone's working from home. But there's definitely the opportunity to connect with people, to hear what skills they're looking for, to hear how you can work on your resume. People are very friendly and very willing to help if you reach out. And the connections you make, whether you're just like, you know, going and having a beer with a colleague or a classmate you met a few years ago, are really good opportunities to get in contact and to stay in contact with people.
Great, thank you. Andrew, were you going to say something?
Yes, pop the camera over here. So for me, I want to dovetail off what Indiana said. I think that's a really excellent point. I think, working in the HR space now, having an opportunity to communicate with HR professionals on a daily basis, they're very social people. They like helping people. That's very much what they're involved in their job and responsibility. I don't think it would be uncomfortable or unusual if you wanted to, if you're looking at a particular company or industry that you're interested in, feel free to connect with a HR professional from those organizations. And through that connection, instead of just connecting and not saying anything, they give you that message box and write a message and be like, hey, I know the economy's tough. You may not be hiring, but what types of things are you looking for? What skill sets are you trying to acquire with entry-level positions? And ask them the question. They may not answer you, but you may get some quality intelligence from people that do reply. And I think that you could gain a lot of insight on things you could do in the interim if you don't have a position in the fields that you're trying to target. Same thing would be with people from Seton Hall. So it could be classmates you've interacted with, but it also could be ones like myself and our age group. If you find other graduates from Seton Hall that are in roles that you aspire to be, or even in companies you want to work for, reach out to them. Same thing, connect, ask them a question. Fellow graduate, I know you probably went through the similar things. What do you think would be good things for me to do to help work to get your role? And I think people will be more than happy to answer those questions and help where they can.
Thank you. This is possibly what part, I think Kristen touched on this, and maybe I'm repeating something that you said, but recruiters are telling us that one of their questions now when they're meeting with people is, what have you been doing during this time? And I think they're going to continue to ask you that question, because you can be just, hanging in front of Netflix for hours every day, or you could be doing some of the things that the panelists just talked about. And I just want to add one, and that is that if there may be a skill that you're missing, that as you look at job descriptions, employers may be asking for a particular area of expertise that you don't have, this is a perfect time to be able to start developing those skills. So Kristen, back to you. Can you talk a little bit about your senior year, the end of your year, and were you concerned about it when you learned what was happening around you, and tell us what happened?
Yeah, absolutely. So I had interned at Coin PR for probably the last 2 years of college. So I'd been there for a long time. In my head, I was sort of assumed, great, they're going to hire me after graduation. I've been there this long. I was there every semester straight through. And even my employers talked about it that way. Like they sort of, the conversation was, when you're full-time, we'll do this. And when you're full-time, we'll do that. So that was sort of the assumption. So it was sort of a big surprise when in the second semester of my senior year, the conversation shifted a little bit, and it was more of like, there's a hiring freeze here. We're not sure if we'll be able to take you on. So I had to look into alternate options, and that wasn't something that I had planned for. It wasn't something I had anticipated having to do, but I started looking into other options, with grad school probably being the front runner. And in my head, I was like, this wasn't necessarily what I'd planned all along, but could graduate school be a stepping stone? I'll apply to the program at Seton Hall, then get some hopefully real world PR experience under my belt, and maybe that continued education will come back around because I could come back here and actually teach PR classes. So I was like, that's a fine solution. It's sort of a blend of a couple of different things. So that was an option that I had kicked around. Everything worked out luckily, and because of the credibility and the rapport that I had built with some of my direct internship supervisors, they were able to make magic happen and get me a job at Coin. But I think I was lucky in that, and that, like I said earlier, that was the exception versus the norm. But I think sort of a little bit of the takeaway there is treat every opportunity like an interview. Because I had put in the time and the work and build that relationship during my internship, they were willing to fight for me during the time where things weren't so easy. Hiring conversations were a little bit more challenging. Budget conversations were a little bit more difficult. But because of that relationship, they were willing to put themselves out there and fight for me. And I think the same goes for right now. It doesn't necessarily need to be your full-time job that you're going to have for the next 10 years. But if there's a temp job or even an unpaid internship, or, some sort of contracting job or consulting, consider that a stepping stone, and that might not necessarily be your long-term plan at the moment. But if you put in the time, you put in the work, that could end up coming back to you and provide a longer-term opportunity that maybe you hadn't thought of.
Thank you. Does anybody want to add to that? So I did not graduate in a down market like this. I'm interested in what your reaction was when you realized what was happening. Now, I know that, you ended up getting up and saying, here's what I have to do to get started. And once you started your career path, we can talk about that in a minute, but can you talk about like what happens when you find yourself suddenly, you thought you had this great, like bringing it back to the class of 2020, 6 months ago, they thought they were graduating into the best economy that we've had. And now suddenly this is what happened. How do you handle that? How do you get to the point where you say, okay, now I have to rearrange and change course? How did that happen for you? Andrew, you want to, because you talked about where you went as an interim?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me personally, I mean, the first several jobs I had they weren't great opportunities in terms of advancement, compensation. They weren't the most exciting career choices at the given moment that I had. Obviously, it's really discouraging. You see something where things were pretty well in the early, that mid-2000s space to that point, and it obviously went the wrong way. I think what's important here is, it's easy to get discouraged, and I know you probably hear a bunch of people say that, so I don't want to beat a dead horse, but it's easy to be discouraged through that process. But what you can do is within those individual moments when you're in a temp job, a low-paying first entry-level job, whatever the case may be, this is your opportunity to make an impression on somebody. And as you're consistently treating the job as if it's the best job, your favorite job, I love everything about this, people recognize that, they respect that, and they look to try to help you moving forward, whether it's within that organization or it's somebody that can help you down the road. I've had multiple people from different jobs that I've had be references as I move forward and interview for positions that I didn't have experience in as I move into those. And they would go back and they would talk to the hiring manager about their experience working with me, even though it was a position I didn't ultimately have prior experience in. So I think it's really important that you treat every opportunity, as Kristen said, as that interview process, because people recognize the light, the excitement that you bring to something, and they will reward you for it. It may not be right away, but they will take care of you moving forward at some point.
That's great advice. Thank you. Kristen or Indiana, do you have anything that you want to add to that? He did a good job. It's hard to add to it.
No, I think he covered it.
Okay, I think we have. I'm sorry.
Oh, I would say the one thing that I would add is it felt like the rug got pulled out from under us real fast, similar to how it felt here. One day the market was doing great, and the next day people are being laid off, and just like groups of people in New York City. But I would say just remain calm, remain confident, continue to grow who you are, and have some fun with it as well. Just keep looking, keep your head up, and stay positive. The 3 months where I was waiting to decide and to hear whether I was going to be able to go to London, I took a position teaching leadership in DC by my parents' house, and then ended up traveling with them, working for them for a few months, and had a fantastic time learning skills that I didn't yet have under my belt. It definitely wasn't my full-time, job that I wanted for the rest of my life, but it did teach valuable skills. And you don't have to look at it as this is going to be my job forever. Just have fun with it and take something away from it and find the positive in a not so great situation.
Thank you. It sounds like everybody is saying, rearrange your plans slightly. I think it's not let go of your goal, but your short-term goal maybe needs to change, and you do the best you can and do everything you can while you're there so that you can start to get towards your long-term. I think we have a couple of questions. Bob, did you want to say?
Oh, thank you. So in times of now where jobs are scarce and you're starting to see things like re-engineering and downsizing. By the way, this is like the 5th one that I've experienced in my career, so they're always fun. But how do you, when you think you might be an intern waiting for a conversion, or you might be new on a job and you're trying to stay in the job, how do you actually differentiate yourself and show that and demonstrate your value to show that you're one of the folks that should be retained.
Somebody want to answer that? Kristen, you had to do that when you were thinking that you weren't going to continue your internship, right?
Yeah, and I was just going to say, I mean, this is not necessarily a skill or showcasing work, but sometimes patience could be the difference. I think the fact that I was willing to stick with Coin while they sort of figured out their situation told a lot about me and the type of person that I was and the type of employee that I would be, and that I was willing to stick with them. So I think that's one thing. And then I think the other thing is for people interviewing, come to the table with something that maybe shows how you've been using this downtime, or the time in between interviews, like whether that's coming up with an idea for a company to solve a solution or a proposal or a piece of writing, but bring something to the table that'll be memorable for them, because everybody has a resume. Everybody is going to have, some sort of skill set that maybe aren't drastically different, but do something different, bring something that provides a solution for them and something a little bit more meaningful, where if nothing else, it's something that they'll remember and you'll stand out in their minds after the fact.
Thank you. Andrew, what do you think?
Well, I think it depends, obviously, what specific situation the individual's in. If we're talking about you're in an internship or you're in an entry-level position and try to stand out to move forward, I think it's important no matter what the job is. If you're working at a Walmart, if you're in a financial institution, there's somebody who's the highest achiever at that organization, whether it's the manager, whether it's somebody at your similar role. You should try to emulate at least a little bit, take away something from what they do that makes them successful. Not to say to completely copy what their process is, but there's something that they're doing that you're probably not doing, and that could be something you can add to your repertoire, whether it's how you communicate to somebody on the phone, how you write an email, how you talk to a manager to bring up a difficult conversation about you're not happy with not getting an increase or whatever the case may be. It's really important that there is always somebody who's really good at whatever that role is, and if you can master something from that, it's transferable. That first job I had, selling sports tickets over the phone, getting yelled at all the time, people telling me no, it's something that it wasn't a fun experience initially, but there are some skill sets that I could take on that I'm using and applying to my current position. So I think it's important that you do that. To Kristen's point about interviewing process, things like that, if there's any way that you can, take resumes, jazz it up a little bit, make it be professional. If you have your picture on it, colors, there's different ways that you can incorporate to stand out that process. And then once you get in the door, it's coming prepared and not just expecting to be asked simple, basic questions. You ask them and move on. You need to have a story, an idea where you want to go, and people respond to that, especially people in the HR space who do care about the people that work for them. And those are the types of people you're going to be talking to. They're interested in that.
Thank you. Indiana, when we were talking the other day, you said something about how you were determined to do this all by yourself, and that might not have been the best plan. And I thought that was really insightful. So would you share that with everybody?
Sure. From my perspective, when I was graduating, I was determined to do it on my own. I wasn't going to use the connections. I wasn't going to ask my parents' friends to help me find jobs or classmates older than me. I wanted to really just look on LinkedIn, look on the websites where I was interested in applying, and find a job on my own merit. And I think for me at that time, I didn't want to be seen as just being given a job without it being on merit. And the reality is, who you know and the connections you have are a great resource. It's not going to get you the job, but it's going to get you an in where you're speaking to the right person, or you're able to find out exactly what the position entails better. The further I've gotten in my career, the more I recognize that utilizing former colleagues, utilizing former classmates, friends, people you've come across in different industries, whatever it may be, are really a resource, and you should utilize them. You're still going to get the job on your own merit, but the opening of a door for you may be your resume being on the bottom of a pile of 100, or it being closer to the top, and just being reviewed earlier in the process before they make a decision. So I would suggest utilizing all of your resources, all of your connections, really putting yourself out there and making it known that you want the job and that you're willing to go the extra mile for it.
Thank you. Yeah, I think Kristen wants to add.
Yeah, the one thing I was just going to add is on the connection front, also remembering that they're a two-way street. You know, it's not just about what can you do for me, how can you find me a job or get me hired, but what can I do for you? You know, whether that's with friends, with family, with former professors or classmates, but you know, it's not always about that job. I think that through this pandemic and with the current political climate and the economic climate, like everybody's gone through something during this time. So a quick note, a quick text, a quick phone call just to check in. And it's not just, hey, can you do this for me? But what can I do for you? And that doesn't have to be job related. It could be, you know, is there a project you're working on that I could help out with just temporarily? I have some free time on my hands, or if somebody's looking for advice, but seeing what you could bring to the table for them as well, I think ends up coming back around and the whole thing is just full circle.
Yeah, you know, that is this back to the question of what did you do during this time that you weren't working? Also volunteering, and I think that's what Kristen is talking about, but everybody values volunteering for various reasons. And I'm not necessarily talking about volunteering in your community. That's a great thing to do, and we all should be doing that. But if you know, if you're networking with people and you can offer your services, if they're working on a project and you can offer your expertise on a short-term project and not expect to be paid for it, that will go a long way. It tells them what kind of person you are. It will tell the next interviewer that you took the time to use your skills and help out an organization, and it's networked you right in there, right in the door, just like an internship might. Are there any other questions from students, or should we keep going?
Well, actually, there's one that you might. So when you're in times like this, obviously there's a lot of fear, there's stress, there's a lot of things going on. Particularly, this is pretty much for talking about inside the organization as opposed to trying to get into it. At least I've seen this to a degree where colleagues almost become competitors. How does situations like this affect the teamwork and the group dynamics?
I'm going to ask Kristen if you don't mind, because you're top of my screen.
My answer might not be what people are looking for, but I would say you're maybe not in the right company. You know, I don't know that I've ever felt that way. And I think now more than ever, that's not a healthy working environment. It's not something healthy to bring back into your personal life. So I unfortunately don't have a solution, because I think you need to look for a company where the culture prevents that situation from even happening in the first place.
Thank you. The others want to comment on that? So, Indiana, it sounds like when you were a student, you had a passion for traveling. It sounds like you were going to incorporate all of that into your work life from the beginning. Has that happened, and is that still what you're wanting to do?
Absolutely. While at Seton Hall, my freshman year, I took a trip to France with our professor for spring break. My junior year, I studied abroad in France for the second semester. Throughout college, I took every opportunity to travel on my own and with friends. Since then, the job I'm in now is entirely international. Right now, I've had to cancel a trip to Paris and a trip to Brazil just in the past month. I've had the opportunity to go to spend probably the equivalent of months down in Colombia, training my team that I was managing there. I've gone to Hong Kong to train my colleagues in Hong Kong and to work with them. My day starts around 6 a.m. because I'm on calls with my European colleagues. My boss is in Germany. But I knew that I wanted to do international business and I wanted to work with an international community. A lot of my classmates at Seton Hall came from all over the world, and I knew that that was something that I really admired in an organization and in who I wanted to be dealing with on a daily basis. So for me, when I was looking to find my job after college and throughout the exploration process, it took me about 3 years to find the position I'm in now. I've been there for 8.5 years now, but they are a incredibly strong company. Like Kristen said, I don't feel that there's a big competition. We're all trying to build each other up, even in times like this. I've found everyone to be incredibly supportive, but they were able to provide me with that international element that I craved so desperately. And while I never thought I'd go into a field involving credit insurance, quite frankly, I'd never heard of it before. It turned out to be a perfect fit for me, taking international business, utilizing my French when I choose to, and international relations and how countries and economies work together. It worked out perfectly. It just took a few years to get there.
Yeah, so, you know, in good times, good economic times also, our message is often that, you know, your career path is not a straight line. You can't find very many people who are at the other end of their career who would say they had a plan and it just went down a linear path for their entire career. Most of the time, for various reasons that may have nothing to do with the economy, people move around. And so this is, your reasons for it are different, but the situation is not. I have another question here. You're talking a lot about networking, but we can't do that in person right now. So everybody's at their own house, at their own computer. What is your best advice for people who need to network virtually or while they're social distancing if they're out? What do you tell people? What would you advise people about that?
Risa, I could start with that one.
Okay.
I think with technology, there's really no excuse to not network. You know, there's Zoom, there's Teams, people are a phone call, an email, a text message away. So there's no excuse to not network. The other thing is, I think it could be a little bit less intimidating actually to not be doing it in person. I don't want to say to use the virtual as sort of a cover or, you know, a way to avoid the in-person, but I think that's the situation that we're in. And I think there's something a little bit less intimidating about it. I mean, I've even found with work that presentations over video, whereas normally I'm super, super nervous, like there's something a little bit less intimidating. Like, yes, I feel like I'm still communicating with you and reaching you, but for whatever reason, the computer screen, at least for me personally, takes away a little bit of that nerves. A little bit of that sort of pre-call jitter. So I think just keep networking. I think like with anything else, practice makes perfect. The more you do of it, the better you get at it. And I think just be patient with technology. I mean, I think anybody who's ever done a conference call virtually has had the moment where it's like, can you see my screen? Is it sharing okay? Or the video's not working or things like that. So just be patient, be flexible with those sort of technology hiccups. But yeah.
Yeah, I think that everybody has to work on not getting thrown when the technology doesn't work. You have to expect that it doesn't work. Before the pandemic, when you were asked to do a presentation in front of a classroom or a club or an organization, you probably have had a situation in which you tried to do it and nothing worked right, and you have to have a plan B. So that's going to hold true for this as well. Andrew, yes, I see. Andrew.
Yeah, so another opportunity, I know I had mentioned LinkedIn as that option, so I'd still recommend contacting Seton Hall graduates and people in the field that you prospectively want to work in. But I think there's another opportunity too with a lot of these trade show conferences that would be a traditional networking setting. A lot of them have moved to virtual. There's some that I was looking to attend this year for my particular role that were transitioned to a free online virtual experience. So there is opportunities not only for a learning and development aspect, but there are sessions within those that were some sort of discussion related, yes, it's via technology, but there are a lot of them out there that are free that you don't even have to pay for, which traditionally would have been a traveling expense plus the cost to be an attendee. So I would take your time, do some research, look up some development type trade shows out there. There are some out there, especially in the business world, if that's the audience that's listening to this conversation. So I'll definitely check that out.
Thank you. Indiana, before I ask you, you mentioned LinkedIn. I hope you're all on LinkedIn. But in addition to your personal profile and your personal outreach, there are groups in LinkedIn, whether they are professional groups or whatever your particular interest, but you should also know that there's several Seton Hall groups in there. There's Seton Hall alumni LinkedIn group that have several thousand people in it. We also have a site, I don't know if you're familiar with this, it's called Pirate Connect. If anybody listening wants detailed information, you can contact the Career Center. I'll give you our emails later, but we can send you a link. Pirate Connect is works somewhat in the same way as LinkedIn, except it's only the Seton Hall community. So you can find alumni by searching for their degree, by their interests, by clubs they were in, by where they live in the country, whatever it is, but you're only going to find people from the Seton Hall community. So I recommend both of those as part of your online, and all of the organizations and trade shows and everything that Andrew just talked about. Indiana, did we leave anything out that you want to add to that?
I would just say that people are really willing to work with you if you reach out to them via LinkedIn or another social networking field. We all have time right now and we're all available, and it doesn't take as long to go out to dinner or to go out for a drink as it does to pick up the phone and have a 15-minute conversation with someone. People are really receptive. Don't feel like you're putting someone out asking them for a 15-minute call.
Thank you. Somebody just commented that meetups are also a good networking opportunity. There are meetup groups, you can Google this, on pretty much any topic that you can come up with. If you like purple tulips, you can find a meetup group doing that. And everybody now that I know about has replaced their in-person get-togethers with Zoom or some version of it. And, you know, I thought it was, in the beginning, I thought this was going to be an awful substitute for in-person. It's really not. I think we've all gotten a little bit used to this. All of those are good networking. And since each panelist at some point referred to networking as being a really important strategy for you to use, I think you should be looking into all of these. I am keeping my eye on the time. So I want to just tell you that we did, when we spoke earlier this week, we talked about advice. So if you could give one piece of advice to the class of 2020 now, what would that be? Let's start with Kristen, please.
I think I talked about this a little bit earlier, but just looking at things as a stepping stone versus a means to an end, like being open to the possibilities, being open to the plan B. This too shall pass. I know it's easy right now to freak out about this, but you know, things have to get better and they will get better. So do the best you can with the time you got and the channels that you have. And then yes, things will get better, but take the opportunities you can at the moment. Do the absolute best that you can, like Andrew and I talked about earlier, sort of treating them like an interview. And hope that that might end up as a long-term opportunity for you potentially. And if not, that's okay. There'll be other opportunities down the road.
Thank you. Before the other panelists, Bob, did you say there was another question? You're muted.
A student question just came in. What are some things that you have done to maintain connections with people you've met? And would you recommend cold calling, reaching out to people you don't know, or should we try to first connect with people we know already? And thank you. It's been a great panel.
Who wants to answer that?
I don't think either is wrong. Connect with the people you know, but also reach out to those that, if you feel strongly that that's a good fit for your company, for you, like a company or a position or a skill set, reach out to them, send them a message on LinkedIn, find a way to connect with them without being too overbearing. Just say, hi, my name is, I saw your LinkedIn page, or, you know, my interests align. I'd like to speak to you more and really like learn something from you. If you have any time, I'm available. You have nothing to lose by doing that. reach out to those you know and reach out to those that really spark an interest with you.
Thank you.
There's
One more, go ahead.
Another one came in. Wow, they're starting to come in now. So here's one that's asked. I think you've already answered this panel. It says it's dealing with certifications. Do you find that they will be useful? And what do you think about platforms like Coursera?
I could start that one. I think it's super industry specific with public relations. Very few people, I'll say, have graduate degrees, at least that I've encountered in agency life. I think that might be different if I was in a different area of public relations, but in agency life, not necessarily seeing a ton of people with that continuing education. I've seen a handful of people with certifications in PR, but not necessarily something you need. I think that with my field, at least, real world experience is what employers are looking for and what people are looking for. But again, that's just my industry. I think there are some industries where the certifications, that continued education is critically important. So I could just speak for my stuff specifically.
Thank you. Andrew, you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I think if you're going to consider some sort of additional education that's maybe not an MBA or grad school, I would try to focus on something that could be universal, that could be applied to multiple industries, positions. I think, for example, anybody that can become that like Salesforce certified, that's something that organizations universally have some sort of CRM platform. If you're interested in that technology aspect, that could be a good way to segue into a company. Maybe that turns you into becoming part of sales ops and you're managing how salespeople are communicating and then the back office. There's a lot of different avenues you could go with something like that versus being something that's very narrowly specific. And it's not necessarily going to be something that they're going to hire you because you have that cert when they're, as Kristen alluded to, they're looking for that real world experience. So that would be my recommendation if you're going to consider something like that.
Thank you.
One certification that I did was Georgetown offers a certification in project management. And I know that they offer it both in person and online, but I was able to get certified in project management. And I've heard from multiple different people that project management is one where you can take those skills and use it in many different fields, but knowing how to run a project, knowing how to manage your time better is a really transferable skill. And you don't necessarily have to sign up for a intensive course like the one I did with that I took, but there's TED Talks, there's different short-term LinkedIn learnings that you can do where you could take and read and learn about project management, but it's definitely a good skill to have.
Thank you. That's an excellent point. If you don't know about LinkedIn Learning, you should check that out because there are lots of different courses you can take in there and end up with certifications from LinkedIn, but it's valuable information and that you'll learn. Were there more questions, Bob?
Nope, that's it for now.
Okay, so back to your best advice. So Indiana, if you had to pick one thing, what is your best advice for the class of 2020?
Stay positive. My husband graduated in 2009 as well. He tried finding a job in New York for a few months, came back and ended up working in Western PA in a position that he wasn't too keen on at first. And now it was the best thing that could have happened for him. He's had multiple opportunities to grow and to learn. Your career is over the course of 30, 40, years. And that first 2 years, it's important, but there's a lot of career left in you. So don't get too disappointed, stay positive and stay focused on what you want in life. It may not come with your first job, but you'll get there.
Thank you. How about you, Andrew?
I think for me, it's important, hopefully it doesn't, the downturn doesn't last as long as it did initially when we all entered the marketplace at that time. So hopefully this is just a blip and things get back to normal by early next year. But if it doesn't, what's important to take, and I've said it before, I think everyone's kind of focused on it, it's the energy that you bring to those individual positions. People respond to that positive energy. You're working for a small company and medium company, a large company. If you're negative, they know that. That's not something that companies want to have in positions as you start moving up in an organization. So you want to have that positive energy, be a positive force within the company, and people will respond to that positively. I mean, for me, the last the first, 1 to 4 years, 5 years of my career was a grind. It wasn't great. I mean, I wasn't making as much money as I would have hoped when I was in college. They weren't positions that I wanted to be in the first place. But again, it's being in those roles, even if you're not something you are particularly enjoying immensely working on, is that there's an opportunity to get those transferable skills that we've talked about, develop things that you can incorporate into your routine, that you see other people that are successful in those organizations, so that you can use those as you move forward and find other opportunities and hone your craft. So then when you have an interview with that company or with that person that you want to work with or work for, you are prepared to have that conversation, and you can leave a lasting impression on them, whether they would consider to hire you, for that position.
Thank you. Are there any last comments from anybody anything you have not said that you'd like to share?
Can I just add one thing?
Of course.
Just today alone, I've heard of 2 jobs with my company be made available where they're looking for external people. So they may not fit anyone on this call, but the jobs are coming back. The economy is already starting to move a little bit in the right direction. Keep positive, and the jobs they're gonna come back. They will.
So panelists, when you hear about openings at your organizations, please let us know so that we can share them with our recent grads. And I want to tell you all that, first of all, this has been recorded, and I was going to put their emails on the screen, but I don't want to do that. So they have all offered to be available to network with. So if you would like their information, their email information, please send an email to careers, that's plural, CAREERS @shu.edu, and we'll be happy to send you that information. Let them be part of your network now. And to the panelists, I want to say thank you so much. We're very proud of all of you and all that you've accomplished and what you overcame when you graduated. I hope the class of 2020 doesn't have to do this in 10 years to talk to another class in this situation, but I'm sure that they have all benefited from the advice and the information you've shared. And I thank everybody who has participated on this call. So I encourage you all, if you haven't already, to contact us to schedule some time with a career advisor. We're here. We don't stop working with students when they graduate. So we're here every day speaking with students and alumni, especially new grads, to help them through this whole process. So stay in touch with us. And thank you all very much for joining us. And panelists, please stay on for 1 second. So good luck, everybody, and I hope to hear from you.